Yeah, it's
How did that
back.
happen? Got that air. What's our top? With the spotlight on him.
Now for real, yeah.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the Mean Joe Happy Hour Huddle, starring Stephanie Keogh, Anthony Taylor, DJ Renob, Mike Bloomstein, and for the very first time, Jimmy White.
Woo!
We are our guest this week, and we're going to be talking about creating an effective content strategy. But before we get into all that stuff, just a couple little things. If you have any questions for us, type it in the chat below and we will answer it. Also, we'd love to know who's here, so say hi, let us know you're here, and we'll say hi back. And then the last thing, but maybe the most important thing, is that anybody who's watching right now, probably not subscribers. But if you're here, you watch us, you're entertained, you like it, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. And without further ado, everyone's favorite part of the huddle, or is it just my favorite part of the huddle, the happy hour part? Let's see what everybody is drinking. Stephanie.
I'm going straight out of the can, little yellow beer.
Woo!
Awesome. Favorite right there. Anthony.
Classic Cleveland bourbon whiskey.
Nice. Michael.
Noble Beast again with a crowler. Probably not gonna finish it. We'll try.
Nice. I have a Tito's and sugar-free Red Bull, much needed Red Bull here in the old Papa Joe's pint glass. And then I saved the last guy here, the newest guy. Jimmy, what do you got here?
I would love to say that there's like vodka in here, but it's still just the water that I brought to the office this morning. I actually haven't like bought alcohol in 2 weeks. I just haven't. My sister has been doing the grocery shopping, so unfortunately, don't any.
I guess that's going to change very soon.
Hopefully. That's the goal.
Which is a good segue into talking about content. A topic that drives a lot of people to drink, probably, right?
Right. So content marketing, big topic right now. Everybody's trying to figure it out, especially with the massive shift from store traffic to
Can I get those
trying
headphones?
to figure out like digital marketing strategy. So we'll start, I guess, with content marketing. What is it? And then move into how to even start with strategy. So the basics of content marketing, it's anything you can look at, watch, read, listen to, anything that's going to communicate something to a lot of times content marketing kind of gets pigeonholed into blog posts, getting these connotations, food blog, which isn't the reality. It's not content marketing. It's a small fraction of it. And I think the key to a successful content marketing strategy, maybe I'll let you kind of chime in here, is starting with what you're solving. Just producing content to produce content is going back to Bill Gates' quote of content is king. But much more quality content is king today than just quantity. So, Jimmy, kind of want to hear your stance on this. And you want to kind of give a little bit of a background for everybody on what you're doing here as well, and kind of where your expertise in content marketing comes from.
Sure. So I guess I am in a digital marketing coordinator role. I do blog writing for clients and social media, and basically any like random writing that we need done, I'm usually gonna see it, if not work on it. And my expertise is I've been doing digital marketing content writing role for a little over 2 years, and I really enjoy the creation aspect of it, and I don't know, I make stuff in my free time too, so I'm very into keeping up on the strategy behind it. So, and I guess to your point, I would agree completely. I think there's an immediate reaction to, hey, we got to have a blog for most companies, which I don't believe is the case. It's definitely a lot easier to write for certain clients over others. But I think if whatever content you're producing, need to be you need to be solving some sort of problem for your client base, that problems that they would have and that they would come to you for, because uh, otherwise they're probably not going to be that interested in just your opinion.
Absolutely, and I think also to kind of bring some context into things here, the marketing strategy that a business rolls out needs to be succinct across every platform. So content marketing isn't just what's on your website and social media accounts and YouTube videos. It's what's on your TV commercial and what's on your PR, your press releases. Um, the, all those mediums need to speak to each other. Um, and that's going to help your overall messaging as far as creating that, that impact from your content marketing strategy. So to kind of get things started as far as research and trying to figure out what is the right audience, what are some ways that a business can find the ideal audience or the audience that they should be trying to reach?
I mean, I don't know.
I'll you take that one.
Well, I guess I think the most important thing is, one, you need to talk to your customers, or if you're just starting out, I think it would be a good idea to ask people within your network kind of how they feel about your ideas, because uh, that is a good way to kind of get a ground floor view of people's perspective of the service you're providing. Because if you don't know your customer base, then that's like a huge battle. But you do know what industry you're in, and you can look at your competitors and build customer bases, or I guess customer profiles off of that. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and there's some general tools out there that can help with that research phase. If you have a website, an existing website, our favorite as far as the digital team goes, Google Analytics is always a great place to start to learn what the demographics of your audience is. If you're starting cold, I think something as simple as sending a survey out to your existing network of friends, family, or social media network, just to try and get a better understanding of what your product is going to resonate with. And also, if you have some existing content that's out there, again, using some analytics tools, whether it's Google Analytics, Facebook, Twitter, anything that can be tracked digitally, to see what content gets the best result. Is it something that has to do with your specific service? If it's that service, what issue are you solving in that content that people are trying to solve for? And for a lot of people, I think that they just assume they know what their customers are trying to solve for. And even when they ask them, if they don't get the answer that was their assumption, then they just go with their assumption anyway. So I think it's being open-minded and realizing that there's a chance that you may be totally off base as to what your customers are asking or what they want to find out. And then trying to actually answer whatever those questions are is a good place to start. Jimmy, I know you've had some experience with like Answer the Internet. Any tools like that you have to recommend for somebody who's trying to do some research into, what questions are popular or what people are asking about a topic?
I mean, yeah, Answer the Public has been great. I think us with our use of super easy to use Ahrefs, my experience with that's a great tool as well. And
Research.
Moz, I know those are mostly paid tools, but you could even like, if you're looking for answer questions, you can search. You can use Google to get a feeling of type of searches. Like if you're searching for custom T-shirts, and you scroll down to the bottom of the suggestions, it will recommend other types of searches, and a lot of those are like how, what, who questions that you can use to research topics and build content around that. Also, Google Trends is another great tool to see if people are interested in that type of in your keywords that you're researching.
So if we want to break this down for people who are like just starting out, haven't really done any content, thought that content marketing was, writing a food blog or a travel blog. If they don't have access to any of these tools, I know digital guys are going to digital and talk about all those tools, but wouldn't a decent place to start be the questions that your customers are asking you when they're coming into you or emailing you, just standard like FAQ kind of questions? That might be a decent place to start too, right?
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that goes back
and that's going to be something that, right, that's going to be something that even a, inexperienced writer, if you've gotten this question about how do I fix this problem, and you've answered that for your customer in person, put it down in writing, right? If you've got a lot of customers asking about it, chances are someone else out there is looking for that information too. And that's a decent place to start with something you know.
Absolutely, and I think also not cordoning yourself off to it has to be written content. Being any type of content, if you're better at video production or you're better at editing graphics than you are writing, you can have a content marketing strategy that answers questions that it needs to suit what your strengths are, and it also needs to suit with how your consumers consume content. If you're a Medicare insurance broker, Instagram might not be the best place to create content. Maybe you're better off having something written or working with a newspaper or print outlet or long form TV segment to communicate your content, communicate your answers, your benefits, rather than a TikTok.
Not a lot of grandparents and retirees on TikTok, right?
We'll see over the next 30 days what ends up happening with it. Maybe it'll just age out quickly.
Right. So I like that point, Anthony, and it's excellent that it doesn't have to be written content. And you said, video production, but I've even seen some people who just record like a 1 minute of them just talking to their phone about, here's the answer to the question, and then post that. Does that count as content marketing too?
Absolutely. I mean, anything written, viewed, posted. I think you need to have a goal in mind. So however you distribute that content, you need to make sure that can achieve your goal. but shouldn't be limited just to one. And it's about knowing what your strengths are and knowing what your consumers want, and then tying that in with what's my goal and how do I achieve it.
So what are some goals of content marketing? Like, we're not just doing it to do it. We're too busy for that. What are we trying to achieve in general, or what might you be trying to achieve with good content marketing?
I guess I can, unless Anthony wants to go, I'm happy to weigh in.
Yeah, go for it, James, while he's getting the technical.
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely unique to your scenario. Like maybe you're focused on growing an audience, and then social media and getting clicks is really important, or you're focused on using your website content to generate sales. I think it really depends on your unique metrics of success, whether it's just I want to drive more traffic, I want to create a brand, or I'm trying to get people to buy into a specific product. I think the goals are native to the individual scenario.
So what can someone hope to achieve? Are we looking for more sales? Are we looking for more customers? I know that's individual to each, but what can you achieve with good content marketing? Is it just clicks and likes?
Right. So I think any business owner is going to say that their marketing needs to generate sales. For content marketing, there's steps along the way with key performance indicators that are going to give you an idea of how can I generate sales. So that could mean, are you getting better rankings for your website? It could mean Google Webmaster is a free tool. Are you getting more organic search traffic? Again, Google Analytics, that's a free tool. If it's a printed piece of content, whether you're in a advertorial or newspaper, are people bringing that in? Are even just the anecdotal friend calling you up saying, "Hey, place. I was reading that thing you posted, or that printout that you gave away at the resort last weekend. That was awesome." That's that kind of top of funnel awareness type stuff where people, they know that they have a problem, and now they're starting to learn that there's an answer to that problem, and your content is starting to, your name being on it, it being on your website, it having your logo, it having your individual name on it, is starting to brand that we are the solution for X problem. So seeing those and just hearing
it goes beyond just awareness. Now you're establishing yourself as things and is the go-to person if you want an answer.
Right, and then you can start getting into, you have general content, and let's say you're using content to generate leads. So that could be premium content. Premium content being I'm going to give you something awesome and kick-ass that's super in-depth and to be 3 weeks to the research for and design and putting this and that towards the downloadable guide. And in exchange, you're going to give me your email address. And now I've generated a lead with content. Or maybe it's on the flip side of that. If you're trying to drive store traffic, it could be, here's an offer. So here's a $25 off coupon that you can redeem, or again, in exchange, when you come to the store, use this.
Right, so then that becomes a way to track if it's working, but it's also, I don't believe I'm going to do this, it's also a CTA, right? It's encouraging your reader, your viewer, whoever your potential customer, it's encouraging them to actually do something as a next step after they've consumed that content. So probably everything you do should have some sort of CTA on it, some sort of call to action.
Absolutely. I think the one of the best examples of this, and I always use it as an example, is the Harry's Razor campaign that they ran, is it 4 years ago now, something like that, where they bought a subdomain or a microsite essentially. So what they did was they bought a URL on the internet for a site that didn't say Harry's Razor on it. And they wrote this awesome story about this cool company that bought this German razor factory, and what made these razors better is that they lasted longer and they could make them cheaper because it was so much more efficient, they used better resources, and all this information. And then at the end of it, they said, this is Harry's, would you want to sign up for a free trial? And then in return, you gave them your email address and your contact information, and they sent you a sample razor head, which cost them 25 cents to make, and one razor cartridge, which cost them a nickel. And then they followed that content up with more content being emails. So now all of a sudden you're getting an email every 2-3 days that says, did you get your package? What'd you think of it? Can you review us? Did you like it? Did you not like it? So they're continuing to refine their content strategy based off of this broad targeting of this story about this nameless, faceless company that they distributed throughout the internet. And it's hard to say at a local level that as a local business owner, to say I'm gonna spend money on a new domain, and I'm gonna spend money on writing content, I'm gonna spend money on distributing that content, and hope that at the end of the day it's gonna lead to some really cool branding, and then I'm gonna get some customers out of it. It's a tough sell, and I totally understand that. But just that concept of it doesn't have to always be the sell. It can be, let me help you, let me help you, let me help you. I've given you a lot of help. Help me.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think so many times businesses get hung up on, I have to sell X number of widgets, and then you make that sale, and then that customer's gone, and you focus on the next sale. I think what Harry's really did is they got you invested in their story. We love, as humans, we love a good story. That goes back to, evolution. That's our first way to communicate, was telling stories to each other. And that's how we learn that fire's hot. You shared that story. So if you have a good story to tell, then maybe you don't push the sale so hard. You push that story and get people to like you for who you are. And then because they do, you get those email addresses, which is gold, because now you can, rather than casting a broad net to any potential customer, you're going to cast a very narrow net to these customers that are obviously interested. So, ultimately that's going to save you dollars, because you're targeting just those people that are already interested, or people like them, right? But you've got a way to one-on-one connect with those customers and bring them along. And if they're already invested in your story, they're going to stick with you for a while.
Yeah, it's that whole left and right side of the brain. I have my emotional and I have my rational.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional sometimes can outweigh the rational. Pay $35 for a t-shirt because I love the Rolling Stones and this is their last tour ever. I'm going to buy the Rolling Stones t-shirt.
Right.
And you can do that with content marketing, to your point, by here's my story, here's what we do.
I'm sure, I know I personally, but I'm sure anyone seeing this can think of that one company where they're just such good people. We just really like the way they do things. So even if I can get, this broom cheaper from this store, here's this company that has a great story about how they made it and how they sold it and who the people are that did it. So you keep going back to them because you're exactly right, Anthony. You're emotionally connected to them because you share a similar purpose.
And one thing that I would caution some business owners, because it's the easy way out, is manufacturing that story. If it's not legit, if every time you sell a mattress, you don't give a mattress to a kid in the Congo, don't put it on your website. Or
Right.
if you didn't just start out of your buddy's garage and you keep low overhead and buy by the truckload and save people a ton of money, don't promote it, because it has to be a truthful, honest story, or else people are going to sniff it out and it's not going to last long.
Oh, absolutely. You can't be disingenuous and expect people to come back to you. You're not going to get away with it. There's just way too many ways for people to find out information, and once you're caught, you're not going to rebuild that trust. The whole point of good storytelling, good content, building that relationship is building the relationship. And best way to ruin any relationship is lying to someone. So yeah, you got to be honest, truthful. If you don't have a good story, there's the next question. If you don't have a good story, how are you going to bring people in?
So I'll take the first half of that, and then I'm kind of interested to hear Jimmy's perspective on that. But I think it's you're building value in a different way. So if you don't have the story that is heartfelt and draws that emotional side in, I'm going to draw on your emotions with how helpful I am, or how see this pain point. All right, at Logan, I'm going to correct that. I'm going to give you something nice instead. Here's a treat. And you can start to create that even more by, I understand that this is painful. That's why I started this, or we do this way, because who wants to sit on the phone for 3 hours and deal with a customer service person? No, you want it right away. You want it now. Booking.yeah, go online and schedule your at-home vacation.
Nice reference there, man. So James, what's your perspective? If you don't have a good, feel good, tug at your heartstrings startup story, what do you do?
I guess I would be surprised. I'd be very curious to hear if people were sharing if they didn't have a story, because I feel like anyone that is just starting out, there's a reason why you're doing it, and that's where your story comes from. But if you're really hurting for ideas, because sometimes it's hard to figure that stuff out, I think to back up Anthony's point is just, how can I provide value? How can I solve these problems? Maybe the story is your clients are having a problem, and that's a conflict, and this business is how we're going to solve it through my outstanding products and beyond just customer service. But I think really being a problem solver, if you're really struggling to come up with a story, is the best solution for that.
And for anyone who, even after that, they're thinking, I don't know what makes me different. I sell toilet paper. Throwing a lot of brand deals out there today. If anybody wants to get into it.
Toilet paper's great.
A really good perspective that I like to take into content marketing is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. There's a 10-minute TED Talk about it for anybody who likes videos, or there's a whole book about it that's good. And it talks about how to dig into what are the why reasons why for someone to need something or think that they need something. You don't order the golden arches with the french fries and burger just because you're hungry. You go there because you're loving it, or they bring in this emotion, they bring in a why, as opposed to just, well, you're hungry, or I need my lawn cut. No, you need a manicured lawn that looks a certain way, that makes you feel a certain way, that answers those whys, as opposed to just it just needs to get done.
Okay, you kind of impressed me there. Like extra impressive beyond how impressed I normally am with you. Because you took lawn care and just turned it into something that we can feel emotionally connected to. It's not just about, I'm too lazy to cut my own lawn, I want to sit inside. So if you can do that with lawn care, I'm guessing most businesses, like James is saying, most businesses, you can find that connection to some sort of story, some sort of why you want something, why the customer needs something from you. But that's pretty cool, man.
Well, and I think that these things are really focusing on a lot of the written benefits of things, or the written medium. But for the creative side, and I'm always interested on how you guys do this. But if you're a furniture store, you're probably interested in, you want it to look nice, you want it to be fashionable, you want it to be functional probably, and there's a way that you guys edit the picture that makes it a little bit brighter, and it's not harsh on my eyes, but it still looks good, and look at that couch and that blanket, and there's just all these little tweaks that you can make on the graphic side of things that can say or tell that story almost as much, if not more, than something that's written, because then somebody doesn't have to read it, they just look at it and they know. They don't know why they know, but they know.
Well, I'm always fascinated by how some people are visual learners. They need to see something in order to be able to comprehend it. Some people need to hear it. Some people need to read it. Some people need to do a combination of those before it sinks into their brain. So I'm going to go back and reinforce your point that content isn't just written. It needs to be visual. There's audio is a good thing to have in there too. Get that consistent mix so you're not limiting the people you're talking to. But even in a written piece, you still need some visual. You need to put some pictures in there because you're trying to get your brand, your idea, your company inside people's heads. So you've got to find the pathway into their heads. As far as visual goes, there's a mood there too for your brand. If you're talking about writing, there is a tone and a voice and a way that your company speaks to people. Visually, there's an identity too, whether it's through colors or filters, or we always show our image on a white background, or we always put a grungy texture on top of it. There's always, there's some consistency there, so it then becomes familiar to your potential customer.
And Jimmy, something that we haven't been working together super long, but something that I've noticed that you do really well is creating template things so that it saves you time. And I don't want to steal your thunder on this. I mean, I kind of want to hear, one, how you create some of those templates, how you come to that, and then two, some of the benefits of using those templates.
Well, I'm glad that you appreciate that, because I think a crucial part to improving production as far as from a content perspective really is, can you break down things into processes, and then how can you reduce the friction between each of those processes? Uh, as like that's a solution to creating more efficiency within like one or two people, where the other result is like you gotta improve the amount of people you have.
Absolutely, and I mean, as a business owner, you don't have time to do a ton of that stuff, right? So having a template, even if it's just you, is going to help save you time on grading those posts or graphics or insert piece of content here.
So, business owners not having time is something that I've been kind of waiting for an entree on. And I have a kind of a two-part question, but we've talked about this a little bit before, whether it's better to just do something than nothing. So I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about that. If you're a business owner and you want to put content out there, but you're not really sure what to do or how to do it, should you just bail until you're ready? Or should you just get started and see what happens? And then if you do really want to do it and you want to kind of get good at it on your own, how is creating those templates, Jimmy, that you were just talking about, is that something that just anybody can do, or do you have to, go to school and be really trained on how to do it? So two-parter, I'll leave it out there for you guys.
So I mean, when we work backwards, and Jimmy, you can talk about the templates a little bit and how those are created.
Sure.
So, like,
I guess
how can a business owner do what you just said? That you are obviously, trained and experienced at, like create templates and put out content in a quick, easy, effective way that eliminates the friction and all that.
Well, I think like as far as creating any process, there are big general like strokes that I think you can adopt from other people in the field. But when it comes down to your business specifically, there's definitely that's going to tie into whatever your requirements are and your needs. And I guess my recommendation would be, depending on the type of content that you want to make, if you're starting out on your own, you should look for resources that are educational in that, I guess, in that type of way. If you're looking to make YouTube videos, what are the best way to optimize that? There are resources out there that I would recommend looking at, where so you don't need like formal training, because a lot of stuff that I have learned outside of formal training was on my own. But I think like it depends is not a great answer, but because if you're like by yourself, you got to run the business and you can create content, but you have a max capacity, and I think it's a big part of that process is knowing where that is.
So if you're that business owner, you're at your max capacity. You're just trying to service your customers and do everything you can to run the business, but you're not at a point where you can hire someone or hire an ad agency to help you with this. Are there quick, easy ways to get help with that?
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, go for it.
I was just gonna recommend like in the answers to similar questions I've always seen are freelancing is a great opportunity to get people that can produce content while not in house, still meet that need to an extent.
Mm-hmm. So all freelancers aren't created equal. Are there better ways to find them than others? Anthony, I know there's some that we've used in the past.
Yeah, so the Upworks, the freelancer.com, the Fivers, I think again, going back a little bit, it's having your end goal in mind. If they're going to execute on whatever you tell them. So if you are very clear on, I need a content marketing strategy that does this, I need a Facebook marketing strategy that does this. If they're a good freelancer, they're going to know how to explain to you what they're going to do to accomplish that goal. They're going to work at it, and then they're going to report on it. That's a great way to kind of weed that out. And I think to kind of work backwards a little bit to one of Todd's two questions is, if you have no content, you're not reaching any audience. Right? It's like having being upset that nobody walked in and bought your burgers when you don't have a storefront and all you have is your own backyard. How's anybody going to know to go to you? So I think you have to start somewhere, and the place that you start is with what you're most comfortable with. You're going to put off the things that you don't enjoy. You're going to put off the things you're not good at. But the things that you are good at, whether that's being on video or writing or taking pictures, that's a natural. If you're naturally going to post a bunch of pictures of your family all the time, that's no different than posting about your business. So leverage the things that you're good at and the things that you enjoy. And then as you grow and have more need, start to look for those outside sources or bringing those to fill in the gaps of the things that you're not good at. You should focus on the stuff that you enjoy, the stuff that you're proficient at, because the other stuff's just going to take you more time.
Well, so let's say we'll use Todd as the example still, and Todd, you don't like to brag about yourself. You like explicitly tell people you don't need to call us if you like need help with certain things. But say you're just a random, wouldn't a great place, and you're not a writer, you don't take pictures, you don't know what Facebook is, all the above. Wouldn't it be a great start to, ask people for reviews? Hey, could you, give us a Google review, tell us a little bit about your experience. I mean, that could even help you kind of see in words what maybe your service and story is. And at the very least, it gives you content.
Absolutely. And whether it's, I think just leaving it up to the customer is also something that you could go either way on, but I think especially when you're starting out is important. Yes, it's for local SEO, you should have a lot of reviews on your Google My Business. And for Facebook, you should have reviews on your Facebook page. But if you just need a starting point, just saying to somebody at the end of the sale or at the end of the service, hey, I really appreciate you being a customer. It means a lot to me. Just take 5-10 minutes to write me a review. And then wherever they write it, then it's back on you to be on the lookout for that. But they can't write you a Facebook review if you're not on Facebook. So there are some limitations there, and that you have to set some of that stuff up. But I think it starts with asking to understand again what your audience wants, whether that's asking in store, asking friends, asking Google, asking whatever, asking the question, listening to the answer, and then continuing to refine that throughout time. The content marketing strategy probably isn't going to remain stagnant. If you have a motto, that stays the same. How you connect that to each employee might be a little bit different, because everybody learns different, or they have different experiences, or circumstances change and all of a sudden we're all working from home and you got to do things a little bit different. But the underlying why stays the same. So I think it's a big topic, and that people have a ton to fight off. But I think it's an important topic. You have to start somewhere. You have to get it's, Jimmy, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it feels like content marketing is like a snowball. It's super slow as you're kicking it off, and well, what colors do I use, and what fonts, and what tone, and what do I even write about? What am I good at? And then you get one win with, maybe it's a social media post that gets 3 likes. And you do another one, and the next one gets 14 likes. And then you start doing blog posts and share them on social, or it starts ranking. And it just starts to become this big snow of more good stuff and get rid of the bad. But it's a grind in the beginning. And you got to recognize it, that it will end and it will work out, but you got to be patient with it. It doesn't happen so.
Yeah, I agree that it definitely is. I don't think there's enough stock taken in that there aren't really a whole lot of shortcuts. It is a process. It is going to take time. And that just because you might have the capacity to produce a lot of content where you can produce stuff every single day, that doesn't mean that you're going to see results immediately. You can definitely do too much and create things that don't resonate with your audience despite creating a lot of them. And that doesn't always guarantee success. I think the time is definitely a factor that's not considered enough. And I think it reminds me of, I watched an interview with one of the heads of Ahrefs. Were talking about how they got a site to generate traffic really quick, and what they did was they generated to that creator's name, so there's already that brand recognition, which I feel is an outlier, because it's like, okay, you were able to make this really quickly, but because people knew who you were, and that's not how it's going to be for a small business. Like, becoming an expert and acquiring that authority is going to take time, and that's, I don't think that's what a lot of people like to hear, but that's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought that up. I think one of the biggest names in marketing is, right now at least, is Gary Vaynerchuk. This whole idea of, you should create 73,000 pieces of content a week. What are you doing the other 12 hours a day? How productive truly are you? You need to crank out more content.
While you're going to bed, I'm crushing it. I got 3 meetings lined up right now. What are you doing? Sleeping? Dork.
That's a little Grant Cardone of you to go that way, but
that's what he does.
Mike, there were a bunch of student athlete memes that were very popular about like a few years ago, and it was just that verbatim. It was like
it's just Gary Vee style, like yelling at you. Like,
man, I haven't been sleeping well. It's like, sleep, I never sleep. The grind never stops. John 3:16.
It's like, it's 10:30 p.m. on a Saturday. You're probably out drinking with your friends. I'm about to head into a third meeting.
Yeah. It's exactly that.
That's great.
And it's for a business owner, it's easy to look at him and say, wow, this guy's super successful, and he's telling me to create a ton of content. And it's all about perspective. You're talking about a guy with 4 businesses and hundreds of employees. When he was in the trenches, and I'm sure he still is, but when he was just getting started, he made time to create content, and he made sure that it fit his brand. He made sure that it fit his style. He didn't just put stuff out there to put stuff out there. That can be almost as dangerous, because then you get this fatigue of what, I'm out of ideas. I can't do anything. What do we do from here? So I think for the creatives in the room, both the writers and the designers, you guys get through that writer's block, or get through that creative speed to continue to create content when it's not top of mind.
So I'm going to start and steal Jimmy's idea. So, you guys talked about templating things. So if you've got, let's tie a couple ideas together. Mike talked about Google reviews. Those are a great thing to template out. You've got a basic background in your color and your feel. You've got your selected. You can go in and knock out a bunch of Google reviews at a time. So sometimes when I'm working, if my brain just can't get through to that idea that I'm kind of there, but I can't really put my finger on it, I'll go back and do something repetitive. Copy, paste text into a template, something repetitive. And then as I'm doing that, I might see that one word in the review, or that one color and the way it lines up is going to spark an idea that I can then go back to the tougher problem with. Sometimes when you've got a really hard problem, it's good to just do something monotonous and simple. Let that part of your brain relax. You're gonna have that light bulb moment.
So
now that I've stolen both your ideas, like, what do you got?
No, so I love that, because my point kind of gets there. First of all, there's a great book called, and I'm not a book guy, but I love this book, is The War of Art. So it's actually about writer's block. It's super interesting, and it really taught me to, even with bad ideas, finish them. So this is with my music production, but I would start like a cruddy song, and it's like, all right, well, this one's just going to be 2.5 minutes because I just need to end it. But it starts to make you think in that story mode. All right, there's a beginning, there's a climax, there's a drop, there's an end. Like, you have to create a story form, and it helps you just to get into that, like you said, Steph, that repetition of, okay, I'm making what they look like, all right, now that I've been doing it and I know what a story should look like, what can I change in here, and then it helps you open up and really get creative.
I definitely I agree with that, Mike. I think I was very curious about your workflow process, so I appreciate that. And I think for me, as far as like with writing, it's super important for me to have an outline, because then I can at least have a plan. But it's also important to make a mess. So a lot of my process is just writing as much information down as I have, and then leaving a lot of that to editing, because sometimes I'm in first draft brain and not editing brain, and those are very different stages. And I think if I'm stuck, if I just make a mess and then leave it, either pivot to something else or leave it for the next stage, it's easier for me to come back and be like, okay, this is my thought, this is where I was going. Now that I have a fresh perspective, we can get there. But I've done sit down and try and grind through it before, and that does not always work out.
Well, I think we're all like getting at the same thing here, and I'm going to steal and botch a quote from someone a lot more famous than us, but you can't let perfect get in the way of good. And I think sometimes when you start sitting down to do something, if you expect, right, you've got this idea of finished greatness and angel singing, you're not going to get anywhere. You just got to get something down there, get something on paper, something on your screen, something sketched out, a photo that's not framed quite right. Get something down. And then you're going to be able to go back, maybe when your brain's in a different place, or, maybe at the end of what you've just done, to say, okay, here's how I can make this better and turn it into something great. You got to start with, and then get to great.
Well, usually this is where I would do a segue to the actionable tips for the week, but I feel like those three back to back to back are probably some of the best ones we've had in a while.
Yeah, 3 creative minds here. You guys better watch out, man.
Whoa, it's a story inside of a story.
Whoa, man.
Hell of an episode. A little bit of technical difficulties, but you know what? We did power through.
Are there, as we wrap up, are there any, we use a bunch of different tools, and they're not just for us. They're really out there for anybody. There's probably free versions and paid versions and all different levels. Any tools that you guys want to share with anyone who ever watches this that they might want to investigate, or do we want them to just have to Google it and figure it out themselves?
Nah, especially for social media, Canva, Canva. I mean, that's gonna be, you're gonna look at that as like a know nothing social media person and be like, oh yes, that. So check those out.
What is it, Mike? Like brief little thing. Like, yeah, I know, by the way.
Templated, templated social media posts with different assets, different graphic design images. So you're a bike company, they have bike icons, and you can set up a bunch of social media posts and they'll change the colors for you, and you can make 6 in the matter of an hour. It's good stuff.
Cool. What else?
So,
I'm.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
All right. I'm going to shock you guys. James and I have already talked about it. One of my favorite tools is Grammarly. There's a free version, there's a paid version, but it allows you to not sit there and agonize over your word choice. It gives you helpful suggestions. It points out the, there and there misspellings, misuses, which is, spell check can do that, but it also says, this sentence is a little wordy, or consider changing this phrase instead. That's going to help any writing. So Grammarly. Go ahead, Anthony. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, all good. So go through the free one first, Feedly. I think that's a good one. Basically, that just takes different. You can create a blog RSS feed, so like most recent blog posts from different sites. It'll organize them all into one, kind of gives you an idea of different content as far as written content that you can go. If you're looking to find probably the best content ideation tool that's out there right now is BuzzSumo, BuzzSumo. I don't believe that there's a free version. There's paid versions that are really good. SEMrush is one that we put our stock behind as far as media advertising. There's a free version of it, but there's you don't really get full usage until you get paid levels. But I think the simplest one that again is free is friends, families, tools. Scroll through your Facebook feed, you can find some ideas. Go to your favorite social media platform, talk to your friends, talk to your customers, and as we all know, Bubble loves free.
Gotta get that in there, man.
Nice. Well, that was officially the very first Happy Hour where there was a certain phrase that was not said at all, and we're gonna keep it that way. We'll start a new streak next week.
Yeah, Yeah, so tune in next week if you don't know what that phrase
That's
is.
right. It may be a part of the topic. We're going to find out. Cool. All right. Well, great job. I think, as always, if there's anybody who is struggling or, wanting to do this, but thinking that it's not for them and they watch this, they might have an easier time. And I think we just provided some good info. So way to go.
Woo! All right.
All right, everybody.